Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. Today, I want to just talk about becoming more grateful. The other day, a friend of mine, was talking to me, and she's like, I'm so blessed. I have a good job, an apartment, friends, family, all of that, and yet I don't feel the gratefulness or the joy of being alive with all these blessings on a day-to-day basis. And I tend to focus on the negative and not appreciate the moment. So for me, in answering that, I think the first thing is realize it's hard, right? Like our brain naturally, from an evolutionary perspective, has been trained to think about the negatives or, go through all the worst case possible scenarios. Um, Obviously back in the day for protecting ourselves, from danger, animals, or whatever. But that still remains in us, right? When we um, go through a day, we tend to focus on the negatives because our brain is trying to inherently self-improve our performance and is also just trying to protect ourselves and be our best self. So first off, know that that's hard and that's normal, right? Um, and second, because of that, like gratefulness is like a muscle that you have to develop. Um, I personally don't believe you can just, one day be like, I'm just going to be more grateful. And then suddenly the rest of your life, you're just like, you know, more grateful all of a sudden with a whole change in perspective. Like, I think it's something that you need to work on, and build a habit of, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it takes. And then it becomes more of a lifetime, perspective change. Um, so that being said, I think the question then becomes, how do you develop gratefulness or the gratefulness muscle? And I think the main thing there is you have to define what a good day or a bad day is, right? When I was reflecting on this, I laughed because I've lived my whole life and I've never defined what a great life is. And I'm sure many of you have been in the same way. And it's funny that that's the case. I mean, obviously, mentally, you might have something, but maybe you haven't written it down. Because you can't evaluate a day and be grateful for it if you don't have a definition in your mind or on paper of what a good day is. So I mean, I wrote some certain things down, but for me, no family members or friends are sick or dying. I am personally, well, health wise, physically, mentally, you know, um, if it's a work day, I had a good work day. I exercised in some fashion. I enjoyed some time relaxing, watching a TV show. Maybe I played a video game. I accomplished something related to grateful living. And just overall, I'm mentally well and not pushing myself or anything like that. And then on weekend days, obviously you add doing something fun with friends, just socializing, having conversations. I think once you define it, it becomes a lot easier to evaluate. So I can now, with this definition in hand, every night at 9 p.m., I can evaluate my day based on these parameters. And I can be grateful if all of the parameters are hit, that it was a good day. Um, so in this sense, I think after you define what a good day is, I would then define, a period of time every day where you can evaluate and set the time for it. Whether it's a minute or 5 minutes, you know, just allocate a certain amount of time to sit there, evaluate your day, and say, can I be, grateful for today? The other added thing that I do, obviously that would be based on your parameters, but the other added thing that I've done for a while now is I have a gratitude journal where I try to just think of one thing, at the end of the night that I'm grateful from that day. And again, it can be hard, right? But, especially just on a normal work day. But like, you can, it can be as simple as I'm grateful I exercised, or I'm grateful, um, that Netflix exists and I watched, some stand-up comedy. I mean, you can, it can be very simple. Um, yeah, so that would be the next part. And then the other thing that, and this is again going back to the nature of our brain, the science of our brain is really hard, but just taking a step back and having the third person perspective of you and your life is so important. Um, it's hard to do because your life is normalized to you, but just seeing where you stand within all of society can sometimes humble you. I think, you think about something like clean water. I mean, I've seen like various different figures, but like, anywhere from 800 million to 1 billion people in the world don't have access to clean water, right? And so obviously that's something that's hard if you've grown up on 25 years of clean water, but it's something that you should think about, right? It is something that so often we pay attention to the people that have it better than us and how we wish we had those things, but we never do the flip and look at the people that don't have it as good as us. So just having the perspective of that whole picture, I think, is really important. Um, and I think, that it's one of those things that over time you just, you know, if if you're able to look at the things that you're annoyed at, um, and kind of reevaluate them once in a while, it can be good. I'll give an example. Like this past semester, Babson required weekly testing. And so I was like, oh man, like, obviously the, obviously on a certain level, I'm just mad that COVID's still around. But on another level, I'm just like, oh, that's another stress that I need to, go out of my way, stand in line for 20 minutes, get these tests or whatever. And then it was funny because one of those times, as I said, I make a habit of trying to, evaluate the things that I'm annoyed about or feeling negative towards. And I realized how privileged of a perspective I was giving. I mean, you know, it's a beautiful thing to be able to, in the midst of a pandemic, have a place where you can do weekly testing for, you know, and know if you have COVID or not, so as to protect your friends and family. Um, the final thing I'll say is I think you should live life with, no expectations and nobody's definitions. I think a lot of unhappiness and the reason people aren't grateful comes from worrying about fitting into other people's visions of success. One major thing that I see with people my age is being self-conscious about being single. Obviously, there's an intrinsic desire to be in a relationship, but a lot of that desire comes from the outside world. It comes from our parents or the societal expectation to be married by 30. You know, if you live life worrying about how you're living and whether that's fitting with other people's definitions of success, it's going to be hard to be happy and grateful. I would instead live life on your terms and your definitions. If getting married by 30 is something that you want, then yeah, okay, evaluate your life on that. But if it's not, and if it's something that's just been ingrained in you, like what's the difference between 30 and 31? What's the difference between 30 and 32? Like, think about some of the ways that your upbringing and things that have been, you know, you've learned as what is the vision of success, evaluate those. And is that your definition or is that society's or parents' definitions? I know this was a long vlog now that I'm looking back, but what were the three? Realize it's hard, realize it's a muscle, develop the muscle, set time for, no, define a good day, then set time to evaluate and think about gratefulness, and take a step back and look at life from a third person perspective on where you stand within society, and live with life with no expectations and live it based on your terms and what you want out of life and not on other people's terms. Hope this helps. If you have any feedback, let me know.